Hey YouTube, thanks for clicking on our video. This is Patrick from Two Geeks Talk Film. Before this video starts, just want to let you guys know that this is our very first review. Keep in mind, since this is our first one, there are a lot of kinks and a lot of things that we may have yet to work out, so bear with us. Also, before it starts, I'd like to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Jack's Movie Reviews. He's done a review of The Graduate, and he reviews a lot of other movies, as the name of his channel implies. I actually commented on his Graduate review saying that my friend and I were about to kick off a review series, and we were starting with The Graduate, so he said to be sure to add that video in a comment, and enjoy Two Geeks Talk Film. Devon?
Yeah?
I'd like to talk to you about something.
What?
One word. Are you listening?
Yeah?
Plastics.
What do you mean, plastics?
There's a great future in them. Think about it. Will you do that?
Yeah?
Good. Enough said. It's a deal.
And this is Two Geeks Talk Film.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And welcome to Two Geeks Talk Film. I'm Patrick.
I'm Devon.
And we're two geeks here to talk to you about film. Movies we love.
Movies we hate.
And movies we wish would be shot off the face of the earth. Alright, so I figured that since this is our first episode, instead of going straight into the movie that we're talking about, we should kind of give our own little background on movies, and so I'll start with mine.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I actually remember going to see my very first movie in the movie theater. It was like fall of 1999.
I think the first movie I saw was in like 2002 or something. I saw Santa Claus 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I remember going to see that too, but
I think we may have gone on a kindergarten field trip, but I think I saw it with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My first movie, though, that I distinctly remember going to see it too was Elmo and Grouchland. And I remember like being excited that whole day at preschool, like, oh, I'm going to see Elmo and Grouchland.
I think I either saw that on I think I may have seen the bootleg of it.
Really? Is there a black market for Sesame Street-based movies out there?
There might be. I don't know. I think I may have seen it in the theater, but I don't think I did, because I don't remember going to the theater. But it seems like I saw it in like really shitty quality, so it's probably a VHS or a bootleg or something.
I mean, I had a VHS too, and I probably played the crap out of that thing.
But I feel like I would still have it, you know? I don't have it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I got rid of mine, a long time ago.
Right.
But yeah, and watching movies and stuff and learning about like the behind the scenes stuff always kind of like was fascinating to me. Like two movies in particular that I remember, the VHS copies or the Disney Masterpiece Collection copies of The Jungle Book and Mary Poppins. And I remember, at the end of the VHS tape, they had the special features or just a little featurette behind the scenes of them. And I remember always watching those whenever I would watch those two movies.
Let's stop there for a second. Can you believe that people are trying to sell those things for like $10,000?
Well, like, people are trying to sell them for $10,000 and stuff. Like, in fact, I'm currently like one's on my watch list. I'm not thinking about buying.
Right.
I'm just seeing if someone actually buys it.
I sent like an offer with a message. I sent an offer of like $5 for this person who wanted $2,000 for one, and I was like, "You're never going to get this."
Which one was it?
I think it was Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that. In fact, like I have that Black Diamond Beauty and the Beast copy back there, and I got it for free because one of my friends was just getting rid of their old VHS tapes.
Was this before like the whole hubbub
Oh
started?
yeah, like no, not before. This was like way after. Like,
okay.
But and it's not in pristine condition. Like there are some that you can get that are apparently still sealed.
Yeah.
But people try to sell them for like $18,000+, and I could see someone paying maybe about $50 for a pristine, unopened copy of it. Other than that, it's not worth it.
I've actually seen, sold listings go for like $50,000. There's only, the pages on eBay. There's only like one page that people are actually paying that much. But people actually have paid that much, and it's fucking insane.
Oh yeah, I know. and there was, I think, another copy someone was trying to sell of Return of the Jedi, and they said Return of the Jedi original home video release VHS, and it was like, and it was an early 90s release VHS, which was like over 10 years after the first VHS release of it, and it was very obvious too. And I thought about sending that seller a message saying,
"Stop what you were doing."
"You're an idiot."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's incredible how these VHS tapes are getting sold like for so much money. And actually, like, my movie collection got started by just collecting these old VHS tapes. About a year ago, I saw Cinemassacre posted a video where James Rolfe, or Angry Video Gamer, some people might know him, is showing off his VHS and Laserdisc collection. And that like really got me into collecting movies. And so far now I have like well over 200 VHS tapes.
When I was a kid, like, most of the things I asked for Christmas were movies. I would always ask for movies. And fun fact, I would actually throw the slipcovers away. I actually have a video of me at Christmas time opening Finding Nemo and just throwing it away.
See, I would do that with my DVDs too. Like,
okay, when you were a kid or now?
Yeah, like when I was a kid.
Okay.
To me, it was just one more thing to have to open up, and I really didn't care that much for it. And
I just kind of wish I had kept them now because I'm like a collector, right? So it's just like, what are you doing? Don't do that.
But to a lot of people, like the casual movie watchers, it's just an inconvenience with it. Yeah. And really, I think they're starting to get away from that now too, with like conserving.
Yeah, I know. Like the 4K Blu-rays, they don't really have slipcovers for all of them. So I think part of what like skyrocketed me into being a serious movie like a movie lover was seeing Back to the Future for the first time on Netflix when it's like they first started streaming. I think it was they had a partnership with Stars. That's when I first saw Back to the Future, and a few years later I bought the Blu-ray of it, and it just basically became one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's so odd to think that Netflix was just starting out at one time.
Yeah,
like. I remember seeing the first ads for Netflix, and I'm thinking, why in the world would anyone pay money and then select a movie, and then like you have to wait a couple days for it to come in the mail? Like, I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. And
I don't know. I mean, it's like it's a flat rate, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I think it makes sense if you can get all the movies you want in that time frame.
But of course, like for me, and of course, here in Campbellsville at one time we had like, two or three different places you could rent movies at. Yeah. And
do you remember that place by like where Pizza Hut Papa John's used to be? Where the Dennis, the barber?
Yeah.
That's where he is.
There was some movie rental place. I never rented movies from there.
I think I actually rented Monsters Inc. the first day it came out at that rental place. And
really?
I think I still remember like the layout of it. And that place shut down in like 2003 or 4. A few years later, whenever I got into like YouTube a lot, I watched Movie Collectors, and I just thought, these people are like watching amazing films, and they're talking about them like they're the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So I should buy some of them and see if they're any good. And I did. And now I have 350 of them, so it's just kind of blown up.
Probably the main YouTuber I watch that reviews movies would have to be the Nostalgia Critic or Doug Walker, just like all of Channel Awesome there. Granted, this podcast isn't really going to be a Nostalgia Critic thing. I feel like that trope is starting to have been kind of done to death, where you just freak out and blow up on a movie.
A bad credit card, you bastards! I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you! All of you will die! You'll get the gas!
I love Doug Walker and everything, but like I feel like even now, like his bit is starting to get old. Like
what bit do you mean?
Like his whole Nostalgia Critic persona, like it starts to get like kind of predictable.
So you weren't watching whenever he like left and then came back, were you?
No, I started watching like early 2014.
Okay, so in 2012 they actually ended the show. They brought in like a new show. It was called Demo Reel. It was basically like a mishmash of different movies. There was this one episode about Blair Witch Project with some other movie that I really liked, but people didn't really respond to it well, so they just cut it and it was like, okay, we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had to make money somehow.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it was a good idea because have you watched many of the non-skit reviews?
Mm-mm.
You haven't?
Huh?
How many reviews of his have you watched? Like, have you watched like his catalog?
What do you mean?
Like there are no skits.
Oh,
Like his older reviews didn't have skits in them like they do now.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think adopting that format was for the better of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just feel like his newer reviews, they've not. Maybe it's just that like I've kind of gone on and started watching other things.
Yeah.
That they just aren't catching my eye as
They're
much as
stale.
they used to. Yeah.
I can get that.
Kind of.
That's the way a lot of people feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still like watching his editorials when they come out. Like he did a good one about a year or so ago on like, does PG mean anything anymore?
Right.
Or like, when does a joke go too far? Talking about like PC culture versus people parading freedom of speech and
Right.
whatever. But yeah, so this won't be entirely like Nostalgia Critic. But we will talk about movies and stuff, and which segues us into a nostalgic movie, The Graduate, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So, like, what's your story as far as like where you came into watching The Graduate?
I mean, I'd heard the line, you're trying to seduce me. I've seen it in pop culture all the time. Have you ever listened to Watsky?
I know of him.
Okay, so on one of his EPs, he has a song called Mrs. Robinson.
Jesus loves you more than you will know.
That was my first introduction to the movie. One of my roommates in college told me about the movie. They said they watched it on Netflix. I was like, hey, Criterion is a great company, and they're coming out with a Blu-ray of it with a new transfer. So I thought, during the Criterion sale, I bought it.
Yeah, well, my collecting VHS tapes is really what got me into this movie. I was at like a peddler's mall, and I got this at a booth at like one movie for $2, 3 movies for $5, and I think I got a couple movies with this to make that $5 deal. And of course, I had heard that line before as well, and so that's like how I recognized this movie. And then a couple weeks later, I was house sitting for someone, and I just decided to put the movie in and watched it, and I liked it. I've seen it several times since then, and it's just a classic movie. So before we go any further, I think we should mention that there will be spoilers. So if you don't mind that, cool. But if you haven't seen the movie and you do mind it, go watch the movie, come back and watch this video. We will still be here. All right. So, as a synopsis, Dustin Hoffman's character, Ben, has just graduated college, and he's coming home. And upon his arrival, one of his parents' friends, Mrs. Robinson, tells him that she is sexually available to him if he so chooses. And he's first, really taken aback by it, and that's kind of where that famous line in the movie comes from.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me. Aren't you?
And he doesn't really turn her down, but he just very panicked and awkwardly leaves. He finally does decide to take her up on the offer when he sees that his life is really going nowhere anyway. And so they begin to have this months-long affair, which he seems to be doing all right, doing that, kind of coasting by life. But Mrs. Robinson's daughter, Elaine, comes down from college, and the two of them start to like each other. Mrs. Robinson threatens Ben that if he proceeds to date Elaine, that she'll tell Elaine about their whole affair that they've been having, which Elaine eventually does find out. Then Ben moves up to Berkeley, where she's going to college at, and gets an apartment, and she slowly warms back up to him. He proposes that they get married. She doesn't really give a definite answer. It's not a yes, but it's definitely not a no. Then suddenly she's decided to marry someone else from college.
She's basically just swept up by her mother.
And so Ben is quickly finding out where the wedding is going to be at. He crashes the wedding, literally like yelling for her while she's at the pulpit. in a split-second decision, she decides that she's going to go with Ben. They run out of the chapel onto a bus, and that's the end of the movie.
So let's talk about Ben. Mm-hmm. Mainly Dustin Hoffman right now. Do you think it's odd for a 30-year-old to be playing a 21-year-old?
Well, it's been done in Hollywood before.
Right.
Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he is supposed to be 18 years old, but he's played by someone who was already in his 30s when that movie came out. And I mean, even a lot of teen dramas, have actors that are like in their late 20s and early 30s playing high school students.
Yeah.
So,
but I think especially looking at this CED, he definitely looks a lot older than 21.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Anne Bancroft, the actress that played Mrs. Robinson, is only 6 years older than Dustin Hoffman is in real life.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is.
You would never guess it.
Yeah, she was born in 1931. He was born in 1937. And then, of course, they're pretty old now, but back then they were just kind of around the same age, so they really just made her up to look, about probably 15 years older,
right,
at least. So one thing that, or like a question that we were kind of asking is like, why exactly does Mrs. Robinson want to seduce Ben?
It's never really made apparent. You can't figure out if it's a ploy to get him away from Elaine. We don't know if Elaine's dad was trying to get Elaine with Ben from way before this ever started.
Mm-hmm. And we also don't know maybe if Mrs. Robinson was trying to do this to get herself further away from Mr. Robinson, so they would eventually just get a divorce or something.
Do you think if Ben hadn't called her from the Taft Hotel, if she would have kept on, or do you think she would have just let it go?
Well, now that you bring that up, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I'm pretty sure that, she'd have been mature enough and respectful enough to, not try to hassle him too much after, she had totally just thrown herself at his feet there. I mean...
Because if it was some sort of ploy to get him away from Elaine... There's no way she would have gone through everything.
Exactly.
She would have stopped somewhere.
And then another thing with Mrs. Robinson's character is, wondering why she is so adamant about Ben not seeing Elaine.
Mm-hmm. I've heard this theory. Mm-hmm. I don't think it holds much weight personally, but I've heard this theory that Mr. Robinson had an affair with Ben's mom. There's no real evidence in the movie to suggest this. It's just speculation. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like it would be kind of difficult for that to be.
There would definitely be more evidence in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's not really... You would want to make it more obvious, obviously. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I just feel like it'd be a little too much of a stretch. Like, Elaine, I guess we're led to assume, is somewhat close to Ben's age.
Yeah.
Or if, a little younger. So, obviously, like, Ben's dad would have known about the affair that, his wife had just had. Like, she would very obviously be pregnant with this baby that, apparently now they don't have.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that would definitely...
And I feel like it might make more sense if it was maybe Ben's dad with, Mrs. Robinson, and Mr. Robinson just thought, oh, well, this is my baby too. But, I couldn't see it being, Mr. Robinson with Ben's mother. It just, One reason I think Mrs. Robinson would want Ben to stay away from Elaine is that, she wants Elaine to have a life that's a lot better than what, she made for herself.
Right.
Like, Mrs. Robinson has obviously made mistakes. Like, we learned that Mrs. Robinson had to get married to Mr. Robinson because she got pregnant with Elaine. Mm-hmm. And, Mrs. Robinson is okay with Ben being the way he is as long as he is not with her daughter, because she wants her daughter to have good life.
She's seen what Ben will do.
Yeah, she has seen what this kind of relationship can do to a person in the long term, which she's okay with it because, she's already lived her life up to that point.
Although Mrs. Robinson does push Elaine into the marriage with Carl Smith, I think his name was. So I don't think she ever really had the best intentions for Elaine in any way.
I'm not sure. Maybe,
Because
Carl Smith, he seemed to be kind of well off.
I
And
suppose,
maybe she wants her to marry well, but
that's basically what she did. Not necessarily, but she married because of the pregnancy, and now she wants Elaine to just marry for getting away from Ben. I don't know.
I would say maybe getting away from Ben would be like the strongest thing to it. She would probably think that anything is better than what Ben could give her, I guess.
I guess I think it's a parallel, like she says, like Elaine says. Mrs. Robinson says it's too late, and she says not for me, and it's basically just a parallel of Mrs. Robinson did this to herself, and now she wants it to happen to Elaine. I can't figure out which possibility is correct.
And throughout the movie, I think that Mrs. Robinson, it's understandable that she doesn't want Elaine to make the same mistake she did in life, but I think one thing that she doesn't realize is that maybe some of the decisions that she's making to try to keep Elaine away from making those bad decisions aren't necessarily good decisions either. They're just decisions that she's making in the moment, kind of one extreme trying to respond to another extreme. Right. One of the more awkward things here is the relationship between Elaine and Ben. I think it was Doug Walker that said it in his review of it, is they literally go on a date and a half, and then it's yeah, sure, let's get married.
Yeah.
And I do think that's kind of odd. It is face value.
It is odd, but what's even odder is the circumstances that led them to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
He takes her to a strip club, and after
she's missing a great effect, though.
She is, but she's crying.
Yeah.
So it's which one?
I feel like at the beginning of that date, Ben is trying to repulse her.
Obviously.
He wants Mrs. Robinson to see that, look, I will stay away from her, but I'm just doing this because I'm kind of being pushed into taking her on a date. So I'm going to do what she might see as the most repulsive thing.
Yeah. And I think all it takes for Elaine to be okay, this is fine, we'll get burgers and fries and talk it over, is just, I was pushed into this. And I don't think that's good enough. I think, if you take a woman to a strip club and they're gonna cry, they deserve a little more than that.
Exactly. And maybe, I know some couples say this, that, they just have an unspoken bond between them, that it's not necessarily anything they did or said to each other, but it's just a feeling that they have. And I'm thinking this may be the case in this scenario. There may be some feeling Elaine had where she's okay, well, I'll humor him on this occasion and just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, but I think the biggest road to cross is when Elaine is okay, we'll get married after he slept with her mother for months.
Exactly. And although going back to the first date, one thing I feel worth mentioning, and this may just be, how it was done when filming, and they're okay, good, go with that, but I noticed when they're eating their burgers and fries at the drive-in, that the way Elaine is eating, it almost looks kind of sloppy. It's not how you'd have yourself eat on a first date with anyone, but I feel they both already kind of feel they can just be themselves around each other, and they don't have to put on any facade to try to impress them.
I suppose, but I just feel that would happen way too quickly.
Maybe, but then again, you have to keep in mind
especially after the trauma that was the strip club.
Well, I mean, you got to think Ben just took her to a strip club, and so
maybe anything would be better than that.
Yeah, it may have repulsed her a little bit, but she still, agreed to finish the date with him. So apparently, it was enough of an icebreaker, that they're well,
we'll see how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a very odd relationship. But I think one thing that draws them to each other ultimately is that they both want something different in their life, and they both don't know what it is.
Definitely not.
So it's like, I'm trying to figure out my life, and you're trying to figure out your life. We're not exactly sure where either of them are going, but maybe we can figure it out, together. Exactly.
That's probably the best explanation I've heard.
Yeah, and honestly, that just kind of came to me.
So the last shot is what really makes the movie for me.
Yeah.
But I can't get over the fact that it was a mistake.
When it came to shooting that scene on the bus, Mike Nichols asked Sam if he could stand in for him. Because Sam wasn't an experienced director, he forgot to yell cut.
They sort of stayed in character,
Dustin Hunt,
sort of, kind of.
They're just kind of awkwardly sitting there, kind of wondering what to do next, which I think, while that was a directing mistake, it turned out to be,
the defining moment of the movie.
Defining moment of the movie that, a lot of critics point to as being, what's good about the movie and something that has a lot of subtext to read into.
Parallel with something like Titanic.
Exactly.
They have a days long relationship, and they're in love. They're deeply in love. It doesn't work that well. I don't think so. But this movie, it gives you the realistic point of view. They've gone through this, and they realize, fuck.
Yeah,
this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
This was stupid. So one of the major themes in the movie is this sense of isolation, where we just see him on the walking sidewalk is a great example of isolation.
You've never been to an airport before, have you? Well, in the moving sidewalks they have at the airport, if you were to just stand on them, they move you a good bit slower than like normal walking speed. They're designed to just be moving forward, so if you're walking on them, like actually walking and not standing, you're going to be moving faster than if you were just walking without one of them. But we see that he's just standing on it and just slowly going by. And to me, this adds to a theory that he really doesn't like his parents or like the control they have over
dreading
his
coming
life.
home.
Yeah, he's trying to make it take as long as possible for him to get to that point, from that point to his house. And what this juxtaposes really well with is when he's running to find the chapel that Elena is getting married in. They use
a extremely long lens and compress everything down, so when he's running, it just looks like he's running in place.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like, like I said, he thinks he knows what he wants, and he's actually going after it, but it seems like he's going nowhere, in contrast to at the beginning of the movie where he's going towards something that he knows he doesn't really want to have to face. He wants to be going nowhere, but it still is slowly but surely getting him to there.
Yeah, and especially the opening shot of the movie.
He almost looks like, even though he's on a plane full of people, he's just very isolated by himself.
Like in the party, especially the cinematography, we just follow him throughout the entire party. They read through this yearbook, and he achieved so much in college. It's weird that he would be so reclusive, and he won't come out of his room and talk to anyone. And especially, like, none of those people are his friends. They're just really like his parents' friends. Like, look at our son, he graduated, but there's none of his friends there.
When his mother starts reading, all these things that he's done in college, like he kind of starts going a little bit quicker back up to his room, like he doesn't want to be a part of like anything, you know, that he was in college.
And the scuba scene is, I know it's one of your, like, not your least favorite scene, but...
No, it's not my least favorite scene.
It's just one that you don't really quite understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a definite point of, like, isolation, just extreme, like, you're at rock bottom, you have nowhere else to go, and that's why he turns to Mrs. Robinson at the end of that scene.
I also feel like the phrase, you'll either sink or swim, like you'll either succeed or, you won't succeed and you'll fail. And I think Ben sees that his parents are kind of being controlling, like they're controlling him to do like whatever stunt they want him to do. It's never specified, which is like, I feel what adds to the awkwardness of the scene is you don't get to see this stunt that they're really building up.
They're just sort of pushing him down in the water.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like he's given the choice to sink or swim, and he decides to just sink.
Do you think this is some sort of hyper unrealistic? Because I don't think they would have pushed him down in the water, would they? Because he was supposed to do stunts. Is this just like from Ben's like mind's eye, where that's just how he feels?
It might be, and also just going with the idea of sinking, I feel like, and isolation as well. I feel like he wants to be isolated, and he feels like he can focus the most when he is isolated.
Those montages with the Sound of Silence, those really cement his descent into isolation and depression. He starts smoking in these montages, and before he didn't smoke.
And I noticed in the montage where he's having the affair with Mrs. Robinson, he still looks very detached, and like internally there's still some struggle going on within him. I feel like it's a struggle that is never fully resolved in the movie.
No.
You know, there might be like little peaks and valleys where he might kind of think he knows what he wants, but he still doesn't completely, and we'll get to those later as well. Mainly it's a story, I feel, about clashes between one generation and the one right before it, because this is a subdued, rebellious movie. Because aside from the very last scene where they're just going completely ape on everyone, there,
just swinging crosses,
like he grabbing the crucifix. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that he just grabs this giant crucifix off the wall and he's just fending off everybody with it, and then he uses it as a barricade for the door, which holds remarkably well.
A little too well.
But really, like, with Ben's parents, you know that he doesn't like his parents, but it's almost a very passive rebellion against them that he has. Like, he never at any point, like, outright says anything disrespectful to his parents. They're just kind of there, and like in one scene, they're kind of swimming around him in the pool, almost like sharks swimming around like someone like that they're trying to close in on and eat. So, you know, I feel like he feels constricted by his parents. He's a little too awkward and polite to just tell them off. But, you know, he really doesn't want the control that they're bringing into his life and that he feels like they have on his life. Like, what are your overall thoughts on this movie?
I think it's a great comedy. And I think, you know, the romance is half-baked on it, obviously, but that's sort of the point. And, you know, like I've said, the last scene makes it all worth it. A lot of what makes the movie is the soundtrack. I don't think if you didn't have the soundtrack, you would have the same movie.
Exactly, and
it adds so much subtext.
Really, it does. And Simon and Garfunkel, especially the song, a couple of the songs they selected, like "Sound of Silence" and "Scarborough Fair," they have a very kind of slow, almost depressing feel to them.
Yeah, a lot of like the montages. It takes what could be sort of a mundane montage and turns it into something you can really think about. Like you can read the descent into depression.
Yeah, you can kind of see, you know, Ben's isolation. You can feel it a bit more. I think the music really helps to do that. Like that first line of the song, "Sound of Silence," the "Hello darkness, my old friend," like it's almost like darkness, or like mental darkness and not knowing exactly where you are is almost like it's Ben's friend throughout the entire movie, because it follows him almost everywhere he goes. Like this darkness of not knowing what I want, and even if I do know what I want, how am I going to get it?
Right. What do you think Scarborough Fair is about? Because it's kind of hard to understand.
When it's being played, that's during the part in the movie where Ben gets very stalky.
Yeah.
And
he just sort of hides in the bushes, like, what are you doing here? Just go away.
Yeah, like when he's just driving past their house, that's one thing. I think that in and of itself could be creepy enough. But the icing on the creepy cake is when he's watching them from the bushes. The cherry on top of the creepy cake
is the Berkeley.
Yeah, is when he just follows Elaine to Berkeley, and and he just like casually gets on the bus. Right, she gets on the bus. He chases the bus and then gets on.
And when he's like, quite a coincidence, you can see the woman next to Elaine is getting sort of disheveled.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, should I call the cops? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I know. Like, if I were Elaine, like, I would have gotten a restraining order, like, so quickly from Ben. Like, because she had to have probably seen him in the bushes at least once or twice.
What do you mean once or twice? I mean, I just sort of assumed those were the only instances of stalking. Although I guess it's kind of wishful thinking, maybe.
You could read into it.
Okay.
that he was probably, stalking her from those bushes for quite a bit. All right, so what's like your favorite part of the movie?
Probably the montages. The music gives you so much subtext to think about. And I love the ending. It's so well edited and paced. The music fits the editing perfectly. It's a master work, at least of the scene.
I feel like really to me, like my favorite part is just the awkwardness of it all, because like I'm a socially awkward person as well, and just any part where Ben is on a screen being awkward, which is really just about any part of the movie.
Hey, I'd just like to check something on the car for a minute. Exactly, how do you mean? But it's light in there.
I'm very neurotic.
One of them in particular is the plastics part, which you and I were kind of doing, which we kind of sounded awkward doing it, but it's a very, very awkward scene. If I had to think of some scenes in particular, of course, plastics is one of them. Then another scene.
Definitely when Mrs. Robinson is trying to seduce him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like his whole reaction when she's in front of him, like completely naked. And then, of course, when he's telling his parents that, he wants to marry Elaine, and then they find out that she doesn't even know that.
Why did he tell them? Because, he knew that he didn't have anything planned out. He should have known. They wouldn't be like, oh, that's fine. You haven't talked to her about it. That's cool. That doesn't make any sense.
I guess, despite him saying that it was fully baked, it was really just a half-baked idea, which, once again, that's one of my favorite lines in the movie.
This whole idea sounds pretty half-baked.
No, it's not. It's completely baked.
One scene that I love is when he's going up to his apartment, and then he walks in, and Mr. Robinson is there, and he just has that scream. Ha! And I feel like that's almost a Homer Simpson-esque scream that he just lets out, which is a great segue into the fact that The Simpsons, which is my favorite TV show, by the way, has referenced The Graduate on multiple occasions before.
Marge! Marge!
Homer!
So, while I'm technically still married, there really hasn't been any marriage to speak of since Mr. Krabappel moved into his little love nest.
This profession can put a lot of strain on him. Marriage.
Since he's been gone, I've been looking for a substitute to teach me a lesson I sorely need.
Mrs. Krabappel, you're trying to seduce me.
Well?
Mrs. Boobier! Hello, Grandpa, my old friend. Your busy day is at an end.
So, like I said, we've already done overall thoughts on the movie, but I think it's a good movie. It is a little slow at certain times. It's not a laugh out loud like you're always going to be.
I think the laughs that are there are good enough.
Yeah, they're very subtle laughs, and like I said, a lot of the humor for me just comes from the awkwardness of it and relating to that social awkwardness, which you find yourself more internally chuckling at than just busting a gut laughing out loud at it. So if you're the kind of person who likes that kind of comedy, I definitely recommend this movie for you. Thanks for watching us. If you like it, then be sure to hit like and subscribe to our channel. We'll try to post movies periodically that we review.
And if you want to see a remastered trailer for The Graduate, you can go to my channel and try that out.
Also, if you have any edits or comments that you'd like to make, or anything we forgot, or anything we may have gotten wrong in this review, be sure to type it down in the comments. Just go easy on us. This is our first review.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching Two Geeks Talk Film.